my revenge will be success. And I mean that. But it's awfully hard when you see what they've done. These people are so evil.
The Trump campaign says they are bringing in millions of dollars in donations after the former president's conviction. Meanwhile, the Biden campaign is rolling out a media blitz for Pride Month, hoping to shore up support from the LGBTQ community. Let's bring in our panel, Molly Ball and Lauren Egan. Molly is a senior political correspondent for The Wall Street Journal, and Lauren is White House reporter for Politico. Great to have you both with us today. A lot to get to from over the weekend. But let's talk about this Trump fundraising. I mean, Republicans, their win-red fundraising system broke down after the verdict. Trump and related campaigns have raised millions and millions of dollars off of this. Not entirely surprising, but Molly, it does speak to the level of support here. And I'm kind of curious whether this has any potential to convert voters.
Well, that's the real question. I think it's exactly the right question, because this fundraising is coming from Trump's hardcore base, right? And it's not totally organic. I got more text from Trump since the verdict than normally they're like pretty sporadic, and they've been sending them constantly. So they're also, I think, ginning up this fundraising from their base as a way to build this narrative that about how angry the Republican base is over the verdict. Nevertheless, it is a real phenomenon. But the question that you asked is the right one, because he already has those votes, right? And it doesn't say anything about where independents and swing voters are going, how they are feeling about the verdict. And that is what's going to matter. And that is what, with all due respect to the polling you just talked about, I don't think we're going to know for at least a few weeks.
How this all settles in. I mean, one thing it does do is help to at least catch up to Biden in terms of fundraising, because Biden has had a wide lead. This certainly helps Trump in that endeavor. But I'm curious how Democrats have been strategizing around this indictment, or this conviction, I should say, and whether they are changing anything that they're doing.
Yeah, I think this is something you've constantly heard from the White House and from Biden aides. When they talk about Biden's polling numbers, they said, we're not too worried because we have such an enormous fundraising lead. Last month, the FEC report that came out last month showed that Trump was starting to catch up a bit. So certainly when these numbers rolled in over these past day or two, it's worried Democrats who have felt so reassured in the fact that they had this enormous war chest. Now that Trump might be chipping into that, there's some concern. And you've seen the Joe Biden's campaign as well, sending out text messages alluding to this conviction. But they've been a lot less aggressive in terms of leaning into this. I think there's some uncertainty in the party and how exactly it's going to all play out. And there's just some anxiousness about how hard do they really go on this conviction.
Yeah, and it's a kind of difficult political situation, right? You normally would want to capitalize on whatever your opponent is going through, but you're also at the same time being accused by said opponent and the Republican Party of being political with your own Justice Department. So, it was interesting to me, Molly, that last week we did see the Biden team send surrogates to the trial after, saying essentially that we're going to let this speak for itself. I'm wondering if you see any sort of benefit to engaging in this.
Well, it's been a real debate among Democrats. I think, as Lauren alluded to, there's been one school of thought that says, the president has to be really careful to sort of safeguard the rule of law by staying as far away from this as possible. But on the political side of the party, there's a feeling that because Trump was so aggressively politically messaging around the trial, there was a lopsided feeling in the narrative, and they needed and just the idea, I think, among a lot of Democratic political practitioners, that if your opponent is a convicted felon and you're not trying to capitalize politically on that fact, it's sort of political malpractice. But anytime they do that, they just inflame the idea and the widespread perception that the trial itself was the political creation of the Democratic Party going after Trump, persecuting him, prosecuting him just because he's their political opponent. So he does have them in a bit of a bind in that way.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we have seen, obviously, for months and months and months, the rhetoric from Republicans led by Donald Trump, denigrating the justice system. And now we have today the opening jury selection for Hunter Biden. Same justice system, right? Different state, but this is federal, actually. How is Biden handling all of this now that his son, we saw Jill Biden obviously go to court today. Biden did not go himself. But can you speak a little bit about kind of what Biden is going through in this Hunter Biden case?
Yeah, look, I think Biden comes at this from the position of being a dad and a father in this. He put out a statement today. The White House rarely weighs in on these issues. And the president put out a statement today really leaning into the fact that this was an emotional time for his family, that he said he was proud of his son and he was, loved his son. He, made very clear that he was not weighing in on the actual case itself. But there's really no question that this has weighed really heavy on the president. He spent the weekend with Hunter in Wilmington and at the beach at their beach house. And this is all coming on the backdrop of Biden is about to go overseas. He's headed to France tomorrow evening. Aides to him have said that, he's going to be checking in with his son this whole time. He'll certainly be following the coverage. But obviously, as a father, that sits really heavy on your heart as he's still doing all the presidential duties that he has to do this week.
Yeah. Speaking of overseas, Molly, I know you just returned from overseas following a congressional CODEL to Asia. Are they following this election? How closely are people following what's happening here?
Yeah, several members of Congress went first to Taiwan to be the first to meet with the new Taiwanese president who was just elected, and then to Singapore, where there's a national security conference, the annual Shangri-La Dialogue, where the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met for the first time face-to-face with his Chinese counterpart. So the, China's influence in the region and the increased tensions, not only between China and Taiwan, but between China and the U.S., are the backdrop for all this. But what you really learn, I think, anywhere overseas these days is how closely they are all following the American election and how much the stakes of the vote in November have the entire world on edge, as many world leaders feel that Donald Trump's first term was highly destabilizing and he's a very unpredictable figure. I think his defenders would say that was all to the good, and we've had many foreign crises break out on Biden's watch. But certainly the world is watching the American election very closely and very nervously. Another,
interesting development that has happened over the past few days that may have been buried is that Joe Manchin, who has long been a West Virginia Democrat, has now announced that he is going to be an independent. Of course, there was a vigorous Republican primary for that seat. Should we read into any of this? Does this mean that he is coming back? I mean, he says he's retiring.
It's funny because he did get a lot of questions because he did it right before the filing deadline, and there had been these rumors in West Virginia all year that he might either refile in the Senate race as an independent or that he might get into the gubernatorial race. He was a former governor, to this day says it's the best job he's ever had, hated to leave it and go to the Senate. He has said, not totally definitively, that he's not going to run for anything else. And he has been teasing this move away from the Democratic Party for quite a long time. So his official rationale for doing this is just that it gives him more space to operate after he leaves the Senate, which he will do after this election.
And I mean, that seat is going to be consequential in terms of whoever controls the Senate. Another interesting development over the weekend was Larry Hogan, the former Maryland governor, who is running for the Senate in Maryland as a Republican. He released a statement saying, after the verdict, essentially saying, the rule of law, we have to respect the rule of law here. The Trump campaign really has gone after him. And you had Lara Trump, now a co-chair of the RNC, essentially say, we don't want anything to do with him. If he's saying
upsetting,
yes, very upset. And I'm curious kind of how, that to me kind of shows the way in which the Republican Party is essentially operating now, right? In terms of kind of get behind us, we are the party now.
Right. I think it's classic Trump. You have to, show loyalty to him, even when you're in a state like Maryland, where Larry Hogan was probably pretty boxed in that case. It's hard to imagine winning a state that's as blue as Maryland without sort of going against the Republican Party in some areas right there. But yeah, I think it speaks to the larger way that the Republican Party is operating. And also it's interesting when you look at how divided the Democrats are about how to respond to this conviction, as opposed to Larry Hogan really stood out there because he's basically one of the only Republicans that we've seen come out so forcefully. And it just shows just the dramatically different approaches that the two parties are taking to this.
Yeah, that's super interesting because he was really kind of the lone voice in the Republican Party.
It wasn't even that forceful. It was actually before the verdict he put out the statement.
Right.
And he said no matter what the verdict is, we should respect it.
Right.
He didn't say he agreed with it. He didn't say that Trump is a criminal or anything like that. He just said juries should do their jobs.
Right. And
for that, he's being attacked and basically thrown out of the party.
Tells us a lot about where things stand in this party heading into an election that is very, very close. Molly and Lauren, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.